Hello and welcome to Alternate Image Raid. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to go after the final boss of Normal Dune Tower, the Dark Fae boss. Now, if we quickly look at the guide, the boss can place a leech on us, the boss can steal buffs from us, which become problematic. It can put a turn fear on our champion, it heals the enemy champion, it will do an ally attack with any allies that this boss has with them, banishes one of ours and copies it into the enemy team. We have to kill that copy to get it back. Starts with the perfect veil on him, and also, and the biggest thing is it starts with an entire copy of our team onto the enemy team. This means that whatever kit that you bring to take out this boss, the boss is also using that against you. So there has to be some very specific things when you start to consider how you're going to target the boss before you go into it. For me, the key to that is Rhazin here. I'm going to show you the rest of this run with this whole team, but the only one that actually matters is a speed lead and Rhazin. Every other champion here can be switched out with something else. At the end of this video, I will discuss those alternatives. I will also show you all the stats of all of these champions. And I believe this is the team that I actually originally did this with. Of course, the awakenings weren't on these two champions. They are only one star. It's not going to massively affect this run. But again, I will show you all of their stats, their sets, their masteries, and alternatives, most importantly, at the end of the run. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to do that I was almost too late for is I'm going to run this on manual. And this is entirely because I do not want this bogged down to possibly be on cooldown. This is going to be the key to the success of this run. And everything else doesn't particularly matter as much if it is on or off cooldown, but the waves are relatively easy on this. The waves are not tuned up high, so we're fine. I'm actually going to attempt to just A1 everything here to make sure all of our cooldowns are available going into the next wave, the actual boss. If your team isn't strong enough to just be able to A1 the waves, just make sure that at the end of the wave that all of your important A2s and A3s are going to be off cooldown, most notably Deacon speed boost if you're using that one, Rhazin's A3, and then also whatever you're using for your taunt. I have that on my Vizix. So I'm going to use this time compression. We're going to slow down the entire enemy team, most importantly slowing down their Deacon, which is the same speed as my Deacon. And then we're going to actually, again, slow down their Deacon with that HP burn. And then finally, the bog down here from my Rhazin. I actually just realized doing this run that my Deacon and my Geomancer have sped up. There is a flaw of this team now, but it does work out as long as you stick to that order. So now we're going to slow the turn meters of the entire team. We actually did miss one, which is unfortunate, but we're going to be okay because my archer there is actually very slow. We get a taunt on what is left, and we're going to be okay going in to this. The enemy team does not get a chance to do those same turn decreasing abilities on us. The boss is going to take one of our champions. Not a big deal. We will make quick work of ourselves. Get a slowdown on him. And there we go. And the champion, you see, comes back under use for us. The boss here is resistant to turn meter effects. They do take effect, but they are at half strength. So we can't very easily at least just perpetually slow down the boss. But we are bringing several turn meter increasing effects. Actually, at this point, I could probably go on auto to bring this boss down. The only thing I will do is if they take another one of my champions, I may take it off auto just to make sure we target that and nothing unfortunate does happen to my team from there. You'll see, of course, the main strategy and the most important thing is the enemy team cannot go, which means your team can't go. So you have to set up your team's speed order that you are going to be able to slow them down, and the one doing the slowing is going to go first. If, say, my Geomancer went first before my Rhazin, then there would be a chance that their Geomancer would go first and slow me down. This comes particularly problematic with any champion that has crowd control effects. You don't want the enemy team to be able to go through and crowd control you before you get to go. So get your turn meter deplete or your turn meter boost going first. In this case, I wouldn't really recommend having Geomancer come in the order that he does for my team, but it's not an incredibly big deal. He is not one of the important ones in this match. I really want to show you the value of Rhazin's AoE turn meter deplete. Damage-wise, we'll see that actually my pure damage champion did the least. My Royal Huntsman not amazingly well built. My Geomancer was just recently rebuilt with his Reflect really strong, and Vizix had the benefit of that Awakening blessing on her to do some extra damage. So let's go check out their stats and everything, and then I'll show you some alternative champions that we could be using instead. Vizix has not really been tuned up in a long time. I have her in a lifesteal set. I do think that is really good given that she does have an ally protect. This helps keep her alive. I mostly use her in Faction Wars, and I'm able to not have a healer on the team mostly because of that. We'll see that her stats, we have lots of defense. He's a defense champion, decent speed, and accuracy over 250. You'll see that is really common. I always have the accuracy over 250, or I point out that I am failing. Building her with good damage is also nice. She does hit really hard. So high defense, decent speed, accuracy to land, and as much damage you can get. Obviously, that's just more gear is fine. In this case, if you're not using her in a place where she needs to self-heal, you could take her out of the lifesteal. This run doesn't need her in that, but I do like her there in general. Masteries, I have taken her down for War Master for extra damage in a very simple way. Rhazin, my Rhazin at this point should be faster relative to the rest of my team, but I have tuned my team up, and now he is not as fast comparatively as he used to be. His speed was 211 to be the fastest on this particular team. High defense, so he can be kind of tanky. Okay damage, although I have him more in a support tank role than damage with the way his gear is right now. And then accuracy again over 250 to make sure those debuffs land. He is in Giant Slayer because his A1 is a triple hitter, and Giant Slayer becomes better for that against bosses. We have this guy back in War Master. He might actually benefit from being in something like Helm Smasher or Flawless Execution for just more pure damage, as he does a lot of damage on his own. But I haven't really tuned up my Royal Huntsman in a while, and so we'll see that his stats are okay but not great, not even 100% crit, decent attack, and not enough accuracy. And he is slow, which is actually fine for this team. I like him being slow. I don't really use him elsewhere, so him being slow and okay damage is acceptable. My Geomancer just recently got tuned up, and so we'll see I have a ton of accuracy in order to take him against those Iron Twins. We have decent speed, we have okay HP, attack, and defense all around just to make sure he does some damage and some survivability, but mostly a decent speed, and accuracy is the important thing here for Geo and to ensure that he lives. Ideally, if he was on this team, he is going to be slower than Rhazin. He isn't right now, but he should be. Deacon is fine being faster than Rhazin as long as Rhazin is actually second on your team, because Deacon will just slow the enemy turn meter down in general. So speed here pretty good, okay attack, decent damage, obviously crit rate is too high, and then accuracy well over 250 to land his debuff. He does do the turn meter deplete, and he does also do a decreased defense, plus his leech, which is kind of nice but not the main key part of his kit. And then we'll see we did take him down to War Master. And I think I missed my Geo, also War Master for the usual reasons. So again, the most important thing here, Rhazin is the all-star of this team. And I also like it because Rhazin is guaranteed. You can go grind out the champions you need to get Rhazin and get Rhazin on your account. So I don't mind having the highlight of this video be a legendary because it is a really accessible legendary. If you're starting working through Doom Tower, start making progress on getting your Rhazin, because your Rhazin will be a hard carry for that Dark Fae boss. For alternatives, what becomes really useful here is any speed lead, just because it helps make sure your team is fast relative to the boss. The enemy team, the minions are going to get whatever benefit you get, but having your team sped up for the boss is going to be pretty nice. I'm not 100% sure if your speed lead applies to the boss. If so, then that advice actually doesn't apply a lot. The next thing that I want to have is something that is an AoE crowd control on the enemy team to make sure that your minion copies have one more turn of not getting to do anything. For this reason, I use Vizix. I make sure that her A3 is ready. She provokes the whole enemy team, and they don't get to go. Anyone with a hard CC, Fear's not really good enough because it will RNG you, although it's not bad because you know, if you do have RNG hit bad and the enemy team get to go, you can just reuse the key. It is kind of a waste of time. So somebody with an AoE stun that is a high percentage chance, which is hard to find. Freeze is pretty good. Using a ninja with his A3 freeze. My ninja's been too fast, so I can't take my ninja in for this, but And then, of course, taunt champions are really good. Swap out anybody there. Having an AoE damage, we actually have 2 decreased defenses on this team, which is really nice just to make sure that's consistent. This AoE damage is nice to make sure that the enemy wave that is your team gets to die fairly quick. So have those ready. And then, of course, this champion actually has a high single target. So bringing somebody who's slow and hits hard is good for your team. You could even use something like your starting Kale or whatever your other starting champion is. They will fit really good if you don't have them tuned up too fast, and they do decent damage. Honestly, any good damage dealer that isn't faster than your Rhazin or your speed lead is going to go well in this spot. Geomancer I like in this team just for the increased chance for the turn meter deplete here to just slow the boss down. The boss has a couple of nasty effects of stealing your buffs and putting fears out. The less turns the boss gets, the better. So same thing here with Vizix is A1. So another good champion to use for this team is Sile the Drakes. We do have the chance again of that stun on the AoE. It's not consistent enough, but if you just want to get the boss cleared, it will probably carry, along with the res if things go too far south, and a heal just to keep your team up. But we do have the chance for a slow and the decreased turn meter on the A1, which is really nice for keeping that boss down. And that's pretty much it. It's more of a strategy than a comp. This, especially on normal, just having somebody that is going to go first and stop your enemy team from going is really nice. The AoE turn deplete as opposed to just a CC going first is even stronger because it will slow the boss down as well. Because if you don't slow the boss down and you don't have the enemy actually frozen or stunned, because even taunt won't work, when the boss does the ally attack, the entire enemy team will also attack you, apply all of their A1s, and it could potentially kill some of your team members. So Rhazin, really clutch. I don't really know of anybody else. Nobody I have that does a similar AoE turn meter deplete. Actually, there is one champion. I don't have them built all the way to 60, I believe, but Sylar. This would be an alternative. This is actually less accessible because it's a void epic, but there is a deplete turn meter. So if you're looking for somebody else, a high speed Sylar, which is how you want to build Sylar anyway, another great champion to use in for that Rhazin. If you know of anybody else that is doing that AoE turn meter deplete that you could get up to a pretty decent speed to help carry this team, feel free to drop that in the comments, because somebody else might not have one of these champions and might be able to read that and see something else that they can use instead. So what do you think? This team, it seems pretty straightforward. The boss is kind of tough, not so much on normal for, accounts with pretty good gear like mine, but going with this strategy will enable you to get through this really well. I did this early on. I did this when these champions were much worse, when I didn't have the blessings. I think it was right after Vizix actually had gotten buffed, to give you a concept of how long ago this was. My champions were all geared like this guy at the time. Not full crit, not full accuracy, and it was able to get through just because we were going to make sure that the enemy team get to go. That's about it. If you like this video, feel free to like and sub. If you dislike, smash the dislike button, as it's still engagement for the channel. This has been an alternate image raid video, so as always, have a great day.